By the way, we've now learned that the hundreds of millions of dollars that was rejected by Charlie Kirk has now been secured by his successors. So in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death, the very people that he did not want influencing Turning Point USA are influencing Turning Point USA. And it's people like Tyler Boyer that are making all of this possible. So, like I mentioned, this guy is a political operative of sorts. He came out of the GOP in Arizona, no less. Maricopa County on top of that. One of, if not the most politically corrupt and disgusting jurisdictions in all of the country. This was the launching pad for the full frontal assault on America's electoral system in its most aggressive form. And that's where this guy was plugged in. Tyler Boyer, the chief operating officer at TPUSA, who secures all of the Jewish donors that Charlie Kirk was refusing to align with. After his Mormon mission, he went to ASU. Candace Owens says that he majored in Soviet studies, which would somewhat make sense because his Mormon mission took him to Russia, at which point he developed ties to these shady Ukrainian orphanages that are so oftentimes connected directly with child sex trafficking operations. These relocation schemes in war-torn countries. And you remember who else was directly tied to Eastern European orphanages? Erika Kirk in Romania. What are these people doing? Do you find that to be just a little bit weird? At 22 years old, is this the type of thing that you were into? You know, think back to when you were 22, 23, 25 years old. Were you running Ukrainian orphanages? And some people say that Tyler Boyer actually introduced Erika to Charlie Kirk. So the timeline of this guy's life just reads like that of a complete cutout man. Someone who's sent in for a specific job that keeps popping up in all of these noteworthy places under noteworthy circumstances because he's there by design and because he'll just do his job without asking too many questions because he's compromised. By the way, we've now learned that the hundreds of millions of dollars that was rejected by Charlie Kirk has now been secured by his successors.
Okay, guys, so the producer wants me to keep it short, but there's a few things going on. Stu talks about a lot of conspiracy theories, but he also has facts to back up some of the things he says. Maybe it's all of them. Maybe Stu is more accurate than I think. The little thing at the bottom of the screen was going fast, so I don't know when the article came out, but I do recall Charlie, there was information coming out from Candace Owens and then some other people that Charlie was refusing to take about $150 million worth of donations. They were like chat messages, and he wouldn't take the donations, and then he died. And now Stu is saying after his death, his wife and the person who was higher ranking in the TPUSA, the chief operating officer, they've together decided to take the donors that Charlie wasn't going to take. So in Stu's mind, and I'm following the logic, he's saying that, okay, Charlie was breaking away from Jewish control and breaking away from toting the line of what Israel wanted. He was killed for that. And not only was he killed, but the people who are now in charge, as we've covered before, Erika's father, I believe, is Jewish, and she also has ties to Israel. And then now this guy, Tyler Boyd, in conjunction with Erika, has taken money from the group that Charlie wasn't, and it's Jewish organizations. So I see the tie of what he's saying. Also, he later goes into information about Tyler Boyd, saying that not only is he involved in this situation, but he's popped up in other things with the Republicans, and he's also popped up in like Ukraine and Russia, and he's saying that outside of just what he's doing for TPSA for Israel, he's also trying to tie in Tyler Boyd to Israel with other things, because there are many people who say that Israel is behind a lot of the immigration, but they're also behind like moving children around, because there's rumors and there's belief in the narrative that Jewish people and Zionists are behind like a lot of the child pedophilia and the sexual abuse happening to children. So what he's saying is that this orphanage that he's involved in, it's a little weird. He's saying most people at his age would not be involved in running orphanages. And why is he running orphanage? Why is he involved in an orphanage in Ukraine? Because he thinks that you'll be able to there's a war is the main issue. So he's saying that people won't be paying attention to the children. These children are losing parents through the war, through famine, etc. So there's nobody to look out for the children. So it's like a prime opportunity for if somebody like Tyler Boyd or Zionists or anybody who's looking, I'm not saying Zionists are trying to do this, but just anybody who's looking to exploit children, this would be a good way to do so. And then he also said that Charlie Kirk's wife, Erika Kirk, was also involved in this type of organizations prior to marrying Charlie Kirk. The last thing I'll say on this is, okay, now you're tying all these people into this stuff. Now I understand, but people are, now that Charlie's passed, people are speaking about Charlie as if he's a saint, etc. So I would just say, if you believe that his wife is up to this and the people he was around were up to this, are we now trying to say that maybe we shouldn't be looking at him as the martyr we were saying, where we're saying he's the family man, he's the Christian guy first, he's putting American values first? It's like, wait a minute, this is your wife, this is who you had children with. So I'm not saying what Stu is saying is correct. I'm just trying to say that if we're going to put all of this blame on his organization, his wife, his close friends, then we would also be needing to reevaluate Charlie too, because they would say birds of a feather flock together. I'll go on to the next clip. It's something about, this is an Asian woman. It says Chinese dissident claims China's population far below the official numbers. I guess people are saying there are a lot of people in China. This lady is going to tell us there are less. China's dissident Leah alleges China's population is under 500 million. Okay, I thought it was at least a billion. Okay, it says not 1.4 billion on Danny Jones' podcast. Estimating it under 500 million, Leah argues that mathematical calculations considering China's fertility rate of 1.7, the one-child policy that China used to have a decade ago, and historical events like the Great Famine and Cultural Revolution make it impossible for China to have reached 1.27 billion by year 2000 from 500 million in 1950. Well, we're in 2020, so I thought that they had got to this number by 2020, not necessarily 2000, but let's see what she has to say.
You are ready for the number?
Yes.
At one point, I projected under 400 million.
What?
500 million. Under 500 million.
Under 500 million.
Mm-hmm.
So you think that they have a very similar population to the United States and China?
Yes. There's 1 billion people missing.
And this goes back to what we were saying in the beginning or earlier in the podcast with all of the fake IDs and all of this stuff being found out.
Yeah, there's possibly 1 billion people missing. It's not a demographic question, Danny. It's a mathematical question. Let me ask you. It takes a couple to have 2 children to replace themselves, right? Think about it.
Yes.
If every couple produces 2 children,
the population stinks level.
Right. So, do you know how many children does every woman needs to have in her lifetime in order to triple its population in 50 years?
To triple its population in 50 years, you need to have what? Let me guess. I'm terrible at math.
I'll give you the answer because I asked AI. It's a crazy mathematical. If a country needs to triple or grow its population by 2.5 times, let's just say 2.5 times.
Okay.
Over a span of 50 years.
5 kids.
Each woman, you're right. Each woman needs to give birth on average between 4.5 to 5.5 children.
Wow.
Okay. Now, China grew its population officially from 1950. That's when the CCP took over to control. Okay. China's population in 1950 was about 500 million. In the year 2000, 50 years later, China's population was about 1.27 billion. Okay, so it grew 2.5 times, right? From 500 million to 1.27 billion. That's 2.5 times over 50 years. Chinese women did not have, on average, have 5 children because of the one-child policy.
Yes.
Because of the Great Famine because the Great Famine, tens of millions of people died because of cultural revolution. So China, from one political movement to another, and then to almost 4 decades of single child policy. There's no way Chinese women had 5 kids.
Wait, that was the end, right?
You are ready for the number?
Yeah, okay. So she caught me off guard with this one. I have always heard that China had 1 billion people, and if they were at 1.4 billion now, I wouldn't have been surprised. But she's saying that she believes the population is under 500 million. Now, she says in 1950 it was 500 million, and then they had a one-child per family unit policy. I believe that dates back to like the 1990s, and I thought they implemented the policy because the population was growing too fast. So now with this policy, I'm not sure like how well they followed it, right? So I'm not saying that I do believe the Chinese population has been shrinking, but I was not under the impression that it was shrinking fast. So what I thought was that between 1950 to let's say now, China's population had doubled and grown like, across the world. They're saying, now I have to say allegedly after the numbers she presented, they're saying that the populations, whether in America's population has grown, China, India, Africa, etc. They've been saying that the world population, well, people like Bill Gates, so you got to take it with a grain of salt, that the world population has been growing since like the 1930s, etc. And I was under that belief as well. But she presented numbers saying that I haven't done the math, but she's saying that to just have an increase of 3 times, which is actually a lot, guys. She's saying to have an increase of 3 times, you need to have 5 children. So I'm following what she's saying. She's saying that mathematically it would be impossible for China to have gone from 500 million people to 1.5 million unless women were on average having 5 children. What I'll say is that since I don't have the numbers myself, I like to run these numbers. I don't necessarily take her at her word that they're under 500 million Chinese people, because I would like to think, and I could be wrong, I would like to think that the government of China as well as the other world organizations aren't that. I know they don't tell us everything, guys, but I would like to think that they didn't make up 1 billion people. If they made up 1 billion people, we have more problems on our hand than we can even imagine. But I would like to think they're not lying to that end. I think that if they had 500 in 1950, I think that people have been having children, so you have the older population, but generally speaking, humans grow exponentially. So every generation after the first, there are more people. So as you go back in history, there were less people when my parents were living. There are more people while I'm living, and then there will be more people when my children, I don't have children, but when the next generation is living. And this is because each person is one person, but then for a long time in human history, they were having multiple children, right? So the population was growing. Not everywhere across the world, it wasn't growing the same. I do think naturally that is what happened. So I still believe that as humans, we are procreating more of us than we are. I do believe people are still having children, whether they're getting married or not. I see it in America. There are a lot of people who have more than 1 or 2 children, but there are some who don't have children. So this is an interesting topic. Elon Musk has covered it. He's covered more so Europeans' decline in birth rate. Not that people in Europe aren't being born, but white Europeans aren't being born. Immigrants are coming into Europe, and the children of those immigrants are considered Europeans. So Europe as a whole is having a growth in its population, but white Europeans aren't. So this is like an interesting topic that I'm curious about now, just based upon that number of there being 1 billion people unaccounted for. I just have to fact check that and find out what's going on, because it's just blowing my mind. If you like this video, please smash the like button, comment, and subscribe. New shows airing Monday through Thursday.